Good morning, my fellow Illumineers, the Lorcana Twitch community, and all my fellow Sapphire Steel players. Welcome to round two, first match of the LCCC Season 3. I'm here today, Q8, joined by Rudrose. Rudrose, how are you feeling today? And let the people know at home what match is going on today.
Mr. Riplongs, it is a pleasure to be here, hosting with you, casting with you. Thank you for doing all the behind the scenes stuff. And today we have another NA versus European matchup. Representing Europe, we will have Bradley, the young and upcoming superstar, taking on vVonderland, winner of the DLC from, I believe it was Seattle last year. So
Yes.
NA versus EU should be quite the fun spectacle.
Yeah, and like you said, we got Luke Wonderland, the DLC Seattle winner, going against Bradley, Kid Prodigy, who I always see taking down set championships at his local area. Definitely a skilled player on the rise. And today we do have a very exciting match for you guys. I'm actually going to go ahead and show the viewers at home their list. So I guess we'll first start off with Luke's list. And as you can see here, it is a AmberSteel spicy. Reminds me of some set one action. Rude Rose, what are your thoughts on this list?
Yeah, this is fun. Rockstar Stitch with the lantern. Like you said, very much calling back to those early aggro days where you'd shift onto the baby Stitch. And this one, we do still have a Stitch to shift onto, even if it's not the one drop. And I have seen the power of this Mickey Mouse in action in that if you are reliant on having to deal damage or challenge characters, like the extra willpower that this Mickey gives cards is a real pain in the butt. So I'm very excited to see this list in action.
Yeah, I do agree with you. I think it is pretty interesting to see a lot of new set 10 cards in this list. We have here the Mickey Mouse, we do have the Goliath, and the Mowgli. So super spicy. Can't wait to see this list in action. And now we're going to go ahead and show Bradley's list. And Bradley is also playing a pretty spicy list here. It looks like an AmethystSteel type mid-range toolbox deck. Lots of different key cards in this list, a bunch of other set 10 cards here. Anything here that stands out to you, Rude Rose, anything particular?
Absolutely, and it's just kind of the amount that he's using of just random different cards. So we have two of the Olaf with that second chance ability, essentially somewhat acts like a fox or not a fox. Yeah, can bounce a card back to your hand. Two of the Violet Saberwing, which is just very high stats on a 2 cost and evasive. Same with this Black Heron, which despite having no text is kind of like a discount version of Smee from a few sets ago. Not to mention a one of the Grimorum Arcanorum, which is an excellent ability. It gives both your Demona's Rush, which is super helpful. Can also give extra lore when you exert with the Elsa. Yeah, seems just very standard. And I do like that he's going in on the Dumbo. I've seen some lists cut the Dumbo, some still work on him. So you can never go wrong when that elephant's there drawing you cards and giving you extra lore.
They do say drawing cards is the best thing in TCG, so I do agree with you there. I do like how he's on 3 copies of Hades, 3 copies of Cheshire Cat, lots of different angles that he can hit his opponent with.
Yes.
So I do believe the players are ready, so we're going to go ahead actually and hop right in here into the game. And awesome, looks like everything is set up. It looks like the players are ready, and it starts off with the Mulligans. And Rude Rose, what are your thoughts right now? Who do you think is going to take it home today?
Let's see. Based man, I of course I've got the bias towards Luke because I want NA to win. Also, I've really liked the Rockstar version of the aggro decks, and in general, like the Lantern can really make a difference for cards like Goliath because they're so expensive, but you don't have to get to 6 ink anymore, right? Lantern lets you get him in on 4 ink or 3 ink. And I think the key factor here will be the Mickey Mouse because we all know how consistent Amethyst Steel is. It has the removal options, it has the manipulations with Cheshire Cat and Elsa, but that Mickey Mouse says, hey, like I mentioned earlier, you have to get through extra willpower now in everything you do. Other than the Hades, there is nothing in Bradley's list that just outright says, hey, get rid of that regardless of its willpower. So I'm gonna I'm gonna hedge my bets on the Mickey Mouse, and I'm gonna guess that Luke's gonna take this one.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that because I think in previous sets, I think the argument was that Amethyst Steel actually had a favorable matchup into Amber Steel, but
Yeah.
what was one thing in previous sets, a card that shined the most was Rapunzel's Tower, if I'm not mistaken, that actually gave these Amber characters some extra willpower. So in these aggro versions of these deck, it was very hard to combat these characters. So for
Hmm.
example, Amethyst Steel already has a hard time dealing against Sapphire Steel's big willpower characters. So now you add in that Mickey Mouse character in this build, and you're gonna have that same problem. So we're gonna see here how Bradley can go against Luke and his strategy. I do think his removal cards, as far as the action, Strength of the Raging Fire, the Thunderbolt, are gonna be key pieces in this matchup. But he's also gonna have to go wide. So we'll see here how he decides to pilot this matchup.
Absolutely. Have a couple technical difficulties there. Of course, it wouldn't be a traditional round of the LCCC if we didn't have one or two tech issues. But yeah, Luke's screen in particular is a little laggy. But let me see.
Yeah, I mean it's part of the LCCC. Unfortunately, there's always just some delays. But the thing about it is, though, is people at home, remember this is an event that is being done by people from all over the world. So it's super exciting to see this type of event being created online. Shout out to all the staff, the judges, the players, the casters, everyone, especially people at home tuning in for this event. It's just super awesome to see some Lorcana, not only some competitive gameplay, but to see players from around the world facing off against each other.
Absolutely. And Riplug, we do have a special note from our judge, John. The deck lists we just showed on stream are actually the deck lists from round one. If you weren't aware, between rounds, players are actually allowed to update their deck list by about 10 cards. So what you see will still ultimately be similar, but if you see a few cards in there that weren't on those lists, it's just because they did alter those for round two. And because this is such short notice, we just didn't get the updated list. So apologies for that, but these will ultimately be very similar.
Yeah, these lists always probably have a few couple of changes. It's nice to see that the players uh, stuck to their same build, but just changed a few cards. So we do see here Bradley starting it off. Well, I guess, yeah, Bradley went first, right? Yeah, because he did play that Captain Hook. Luke followed up with the Pluto. And now we see here a very standard start to the AmethystSteel builds. Start off with that turn one character, whether it be Diablo or Hook, and you followed up with a very strong turn two Calhoun. What are your thoughts on this Calhoun? It's definitely one of the best two drops in the game right now.
Oh, it's absurd. And especially if you're playing, somewhat of an aggressive build as Luke is, this Pluto cannot do its thing if Calhoun is sitting there. He can't really do his thing if Hook's there, but at least the Hook just punishes the Pluto. The Calhoun says, not only would I take the Pluto off the board, I'm going to then start getting lore like, there's nothing as unsatisfying as seeing Calhoun come down on two when you're trying to quest early. You're like, well, all right, well, now what do I do? It just totally stalls you.
Yeah, it shuts down a lot of these aggro strategies here. So we see Bradley, I'm sorry, we see Luke here have to take a small pause, does set up a lantern, probably trying to go for an explosive turn. And we see here Bradley just going all gas, no brakes, a pretty standard line with this Amethyst Steel build. We do see that Crowbar come down, this card, that Dead Dock, not needed because Bradley has two genies in hand. But if he draws an uninkable, we're going to be in an awkward spot here.
Yeah, Bradley a little rough on the uninkables. He had to ink the only strength he had just to get the Cobra out. So he's got four already between the Doc, the two Genies, and the Calhoun. So he really needs an ink off the top. And I mentioned that Mickey, this is what I'm hedging my bets on. Using the Lantern, we don't have to expose the Pluto yet. And with the Lantern and the Pluto, we can already reduce by two for our next character. And Mickey now says, well, you can hit this Pluto, but Calhoun alone can now no longer take out this Pluto. And if you didn't know, the Mickey effects do stack. So if you get multiple Mickeys out there, everything besides itself is going to be +4 willpower, which is bonkers.
Yeah, and like you did mention, it did come down now, and I think that's what Luke was waiting for. He was waiting for his characters. Oh, he drew
And we got the uninkable. Oh my goodness,
uninkable.
our fifth uninkable. As Zeus with the Thunderbolt, and we don't even have the singer for this, so we legit cannot play a card this turn. Oof, that is rough. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt
No,
you
no,
there, but
you're
just
good. I like just like how I mentioned, if he draws an uninkable, that's gonna be very detrimental. And I think this is something that actually I'm glad that came up because recently, as a lot of viewers at home or you as may know, I'm a Sapphire Steel player, and there's been a lot of conversation with Cinderella, how many uninkables you could run. And people are
mm-hmm.
saying like, hey, you can run 16, 18 uninkables. All you gotta do is get to Cinderella. Well, what if in this same scenario we had Cinderella, Cinderella, Zeus? So I
Yeah.
think a lot of people like need to understand that uninkables, although the math is there, let me tell you something about vibes, right? The vibes just sometimes aren't there, and
Oh
if you
yeah.
draw an uninkable in spots like these, it could cost you the game.
Yeah, and math always plays on the odds. Well, the odds, but as someone who has run many of decks that, oh, well, the odds are I'll always have a one drop, 90% chance, even if I mulligan all seven. Trust me, That 10% comes up way more than you'd think it would. So yeah, odds are just that. They're odds that doesn't guarantee anything. And I was wondering too if maybe Bradley should have held back that strength just in case he needed to ink it, but probably hedging his bets on the odds, right? Hey,
Hmm.
I've already got four. What are the odds I'm going to draw into a fifth one? Well, odds were not in his favor this time.
Yeah, there's a good like the only best case scenario out of this scenario is just because Luke can't necessarily punish him too crazy with a hand like this. It's not like he's threatening daisies with some bodyguards, something like that. So
Right.
if he misses another turn on ink, then I could see here Luke definitely take the momentum. But we'll see here on this following turn what Luke decides to do. I think he might want to set up maybe another Mickey Mouse. Why not get do those stack? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they do. They absolutely do. So they don't affect themselves, but they affect every other Amber character. So the Mickeys will affect each other, and then they'll both affect the Pluto. So the Pluto will be a 0/6 one cost, which that's pretty
Mm-hmm.
good.
Yeah, I think what Luke was contemplating there was I guess he could have potentially inked that Mickey. Maybe he thinks that Bradley has a uninkable in his hand and was deciding whether or not to play that Mowgli, and then I guess
Yeah.
he could also play that Jim, right? At the two cost character.
Correct. If yeah, Jim has bodyguard too. So if he wanted to, let's say, ink the Mowgli, use the Pluto, the Jim would now only cost one. Could bring it down. The Jim would have 8 willpower. Granted, Bradley does have enough challenging power on his board currently. So it looks like maybe we're gonna ink the Jim. I'm assuming we're gonna. Are we gonna go in on the Mowgli? Luke a little unfortunate too that he's got the dreaded double dock in his hand right now. So his hand's a little gunked up. And the one thing I do worry
Mm-hmm.
about Luke is that yes, this Mickey gives them all a lot of willpower, but strength wise, Luke has almost no strength on his board. So like, how do you get a Cobra off the board? How do you get a Calhoun off the board?
Yeah, and I guess sometimes they say the best offense is just defense, right? So maybe Luke is just thinking, hey, if I can get these beefy statted willpower characters, I might not have to necessarily contest the board, but maybe I can just slowly race them out. And we do see that
Yeah.
Mowgli come down, and that does snipe that Zoo. So let's see here. Oh, and he does hit the
Oh, it
inkable
is
card.
ink. It's unfortunate to go up your second strength,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't really have much choice in this situation. So
Oh,
we
triple
just go to a
genie.
third genie. Oh, Bradley.
A triple genie comes down. The evasive wars have begun, and Luke has no answers to these evasives other than removal through actions.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, so Luke, I may have to win just off of questing out because I don't know how he gets these bodies off the board. He'll need one of his bigger hitters like Goliath, like Stitch. So this Calhoun and this giant Cobra can just freely trade into anything that goes sideways on Luke's board.
Yes, and anything that Luke does decide to bring out here on the board.
Oh
Uh
no.
oh, another uninkable.
It's enough. Well, I mean, it's Pluto at least, but just yeah. So we're gonna have to just go in on a dock, try to find something with a little more gas. I don't know
Yeah.
if you even. Sometimes people will put out one dock for no value, right? And that here you may
Hmm.
just want to save the ink and just try to dig into something a little better.
Yeah, I think you're definitely try to put a little bit more pressure out here on the board rather than having a dog that doesn't like one dog is already okay, right? Because it's giving you the draws, but a second dog with that 1-3 stat line isn't doing you too much. And Luke here, he draws a Pluto and a Stitch. Not the best draws you could ask for.
Yeah. I think the judge is asking what the Cobra did last turn. I'm assuming the Cobra spent 4 challenging the Pluto, and then the Calhoun followed it up to get the extra lore. As yeah, we get pretty two low cost characters, Pluto and Stitches. Luke is just getting his hand is getting swamped with all these low cost characters. At this point, he's set up. He wants to go in on those big ones.
Yeah, he does. He's trying to set up a very wide board here and maybe try to just race him, but it looks like here Bradley with the Genie's in hand is gonna draw a card here. Let's see what he draws. And a Dumbo. I don't think you need that card right now. I think you can just afford to just play another Genie, still get that draw, rather than having to set up that Dumbo. And wow, drawing into a dock, he's just gonna go full gas next turn.
You willed it into existence, Rip Lungs. You're like, I don't think he needs the Dumbo, and sure enough, gets the dock off the genie. Is like, yep, we got plenty of card draw. Don't worry about that. And really, the problem Luke has now is that Bradley's all the way up to 11 lore at this point, and these genies are evasive. Like Luke doesn't have a way to challenge these, so I may have
Hmm.
overestimated these Mickeys because right now this is looking really, really bad for Mr. Wonderland.
Yeah, and it's crazy because he did miss. Oh, Bradley did miss ink that one turn, or at least not he pretty much just didn't do anything that one turn. So Luke did have that
Hmm.
chance to try to capitalize off that slow play that he had, but just couldn't necessarily pay off because that Calhoun and that Cobra, those high stated strength lines, are just so threatening to Luke's game plan.
Yeah, and the Calhoun specifically, right? If it's just the hook, you can counter challenge the hook with your Stitch or with your Mickeys. But that Calhoun just sitting there with that resist saying, I'm going to get lore every time you do this, as we see Luke have to commit multiple characters to take out the Cobra. Here comes Rhino. Rhino even beefier with these Mickeys. He's currently a, what, 4 plus? He's a 4/7? Is that
Four
right? Yeah.
seven
So
with two
Rhino's a
resists.
4/7. Stitch is a 2. Yeah, Stitch has a ton of damage on it, but he's still surviving thanks to those Mickeys. And yeah, we're getting the reminder there right now is, hey, actually, these characters have so much willpower they survive that challenge with the Cobra.
Man, that is crazy. I don't think I've ever seen two small static characters take out a Cobra and survive
Right?
on the board. And I guess not right here, Luke is just pretty much thinking, okay, I kind of have to start playing characters on the board because I'm definitely losing the lore race right now. And effect that technically Bradley is on a 2 turn clock, if I'm not mistaken. He's
Yeah.
threatening 6 lore on board. So in 2 turns, it's lights out.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Calhoun makes it tricky, right? If you leave anything around that she can snatch up, that's also just 2 more lore that she's getting. She's actually getting that plus lore. Calhoun, man, the bane of aggressive decks since she's been printed.
Yeah, she's just so threatening on the board. It really just puts a stop to these early game strategies. And then her having that +1 resist is also pretty spicy. So removing her is definitely a tricky task. And Luke here just thinking, what can he do? What do you think are his outs right now in this scenario?
So he does have some spot removal, assuming his list didn't change too much. Again, obviously, if you saw the list earlier, technically they could have been altered, but I'm sure he has Strength and
Yeah,
Thunderbolt in there.
those
He's going
compensates.
to need to draw into those. Even a card like Stitch and Goliath, they don't affect the board right away. They'll affect his hand and turns going forward, but I think he needs to draw into the Zeuses. So maybe like a dock into double Zeus to take these genies out because like I said, he just doesn't have a way to challenge these evasives. Oh, as
Oof.
Demona comes down, which honestly I don't think he even needs at the moment because he doesn't want to give Luke a bunch of cards in hand anyway. So you just ride the back of these genies. Say, what are you gonna do about it?
Yeah, he has the perfect alternate game plan here with if you did want to draw cards, he could just play that dock, which I don't see why he wouldn't, and which he
Yeah,
does. And I think here, if he draws some sort of removal here, okay, just draws 2 characters. Not the most threatening as far as lore gaining, but definitely 2 solid cards. That Dumbo can definitely draw potentially 3 cards next turn if he needs to draw cards. But I think in this spot, he has a huge advantage.
yeah. I think you just go sideways with the hook, the 2 genies, have Calhoun snatch up the. I think she can still pick off the Mowgli at this point, and that's going to put you all the way up to what 17, 18 lore, and then Luke has to somehow answer 3 genies, not to mention a dock that's still ready.
Yeah, it's just too
So we are
many
going to
too many
challenge.
characters.
Sorry, hits the Pluto. The Pluto had 6 willpower, but Hook and Calhoun make quick work of that, up to 17. And yeah, Luke needs a dock
He needs to
into
be prepared.
multiple.
Let's just be
Yeah,
honest.
right. Exactly.
He
That's what he
needs
really needs.
he needs to be prepared under the sea. He needs a little bit of everything. But there you go. Bradley taking game 1, and he was on the play. So just shows you how powerful the AmethystSteel deck is on the play into these Lord to the Ground strategies, right? Like we saw that turn 1 Hook. I think Hook is a very strong card in the current meta, being able to contest a lot of one-drop characters. Can't prevent
Hmm.
shift lines, but can definitely challenge anything on the board. Followed with a strong turn 2 Calhoun. And then we did see him on if I'm not mistaken, turn 4, miss a Incubo, so he did have to slow it down there, but
Yes.
still managed to crawl his way back. What are your thoughts on that game? And I'm also gonna switch over back to their accomplishments while I get the list, the correct list going.
Absolutely. Well, I'm feeling very foolish now for betting on those Mickeys because they looked absolutely awful there. I clearly just forgot the power of Calhoun to just sit there early and check a card like Pluto, right? That says, hey, you can't use this cost reduction in front of me. Or not only are you going to lose your card, I'm going to get 2 lore out of it. Like Calhoun just puts a beating on these aggressive decks because that's what Luke wants to do. He wants to get that Mickey out. He could have had that Mickey out so much sooner if that Pluto was allowed to do what it wanted to do, but if Bradley draws Calhoun again, I definitely fear for Luke. He needs to find his own removal. He did have some pretty spotty draws there with double dock, a bunch of early cards as opposed to his laking power. He needs a strength. He's going to need Zeus to be able to deal with some of these characters.
I agree with you, and I did just send you Bradley's latest list. So I'm gonna put it here on
Oh,
the
excellent.
screen so the viewers at home can check it out. While I'm editing this photo, I'm trying to see here if there's anything different from the FERT list. It looks
I
like
think
there
this is
are
pretty
definitely some
similar.
changes, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm comparing it right now. I think this might actually be one for one. I don't know if there's a difference here.
Yeah,
Let's
interesting.
see. The
I think there's
Dumbos.
something. There's definitely something. I'm trying to
There is
find
the
it what it
peat.
is.
The peat wasn't there originally, so he has added in two peat. I'm
Okay,
trying. I
yeah.
can't quite figure out what he
Because
took
yeah,
out
I'm
for
comparing
it.
to the two pictures and I see here that there's an extra a card missing if I'm not mistaken. But I guess it's the Pete's inclusion. Yeah, it's definitely the Pete inclusion. And I think the players already drew their cards. And wow, what do you think is the best line that Luke can open up here to counteract this Amethyst Steel strategy?
So I still like Pluto. Pluto obviously gives you that early bump. We also have the bodyguard with the gym deer, so you can protect against something like Rafiki or Captain Hook. The only downside is neither of these characters have any strength, so you can't really counter once the hook goes in.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, if he has a good 3 cost, he can use with this Pluto. We have the double Mickey, but we're still a turn away, and it looks like we have Rockstar Stitch as well.
We do see that Captain Hook make a return, and such a strong card into these Lords of the Ground deck, just because it puts a stop outside of turn one daisies, but pretty much anything else. He usually can just trade into anything that decides to quest, so
Yeah.
forcing Bradley to just have to leave his stuff standing.
Yeah, so what we might do is set up to try to get Mickey out next turn. We'd potentially give up. Oh, as we get Calhoun off the top. Well, I think I know what
Such a
Bradley's going to
strong
go in on
start.
this turn.
It's such a strong start, right? Like you're already threatening his game plan with characters that can not only take out his characters but also gain some lore in the process. What more could you ask
Hmm.
for being on the draw?
Yeah, and Bradley can freely quest with this hook here. Looks like he's opted not to, but both characters on board have no strength. They cannot challenge this hook. Speaking of strength, I think we just pulled Strength of a Raging Fire. It's a little blurry, but I believe that's what it is. You could hard cast this turn. You can only take the hook out. You would need one more body to get the Calhoun. So what you could do, uh,
Yeah,
man, are we
so
gonna have to ink that? This is tough because we can't play any of the. The only way to play the Mickey is you have to use the Pluto trigger, and it looks like we are giving up the strength. I think that's strength. Like I said, it's a little hard to tell, but
yeah, he has to make a move here, right? He can't just be sitting there forever as Bradley builds up his board. He has to just decide to make him do something, right? Because he's the player on the draw, right? Luke shouldn't be the one in position to where he's not falling behind, right? So he has to put
yeah.
some pressure on his game plan. It looks like we're gonna start seeing some interactions take place on the board.
Yeah, the Gym Deer will protect the Pluto with the help of the Mickey. The Gym had 6 willpower, so we do have to send in both Hook and the Calhoun. The nice thing is the Mickey can counter hit the Hook,
Mm-hmm.
so it can at least get one thing off the board. But that devilish Cheshire Cat is on the board now, and it is going to be looking to manipulate some damage as we get a very suspect-looking Prince come down. Prince Charming, who's got a bunch of writing all over it. I don't know if that's a proxy or what that is. Not really helpful here, though. You probably wanted an inkable card. You can go in on your second Mickey. Now, the other Mickey can sing Zeus at this point because once the
Mm-hmm.
second Mickey's on the board, he becomes a singer 8, which granted, he doesn't need that anyway, just to sing the Zeus.
Mm-hmm. The question
So
is
you
though.
could.
Sorry, go
Oh,
ahead.
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I
Go
was
ahead.
going to say, so what you could do, you use Pluto, reduce the Mickey, or no, we're just going to have the Mickey challenge.
Yeah, it
I
makes
guess you
sense.
could ink the second Mickey and just cast the Zeus, get the Calhoun off the board.
Looks like he decides to just ink and play the second Mickey. I guess that makes sense because you can still sing the bolt the following turn. The problem is though is what do you want to bolt? Do you want to bolt the Cheshire Cat or the Calhoun?
Yeah,
It's
that's tough
super
to
hard
say,
to
right?
say. And
You can't let the Calhoun sit around and keep eating up your board, but also the Cheshire
mhm.
Cat threatens more and more removal every
Oof.
time. Speaking of which, Strength of a Raging Fire comes through 3 damage. I'm assuming we're going to hit the Mickey, which puts it up to 4, and then Calhoun's 3 will be just enough to take it out. Now, the one nice thing about this is that we can at least counter hit the Calhoun with the Mickey, but this is supposed to be Luke's protection, right?
Hmm.
This extra statted body, and so far that's not working out so well.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Is Luke needed to try to set up a board early on to prevent these mid-range characters to come out, because now Bradley's removal tools start to go live, right? He can start using these things, and we do see that strength of the Raging Fire last turn come in, and he finally gets rid of that Cheshire Cat with the bolt. It's just so crazy how once that card got introduced into the meta, and the people showed how strong it was, we just kind of saw Bell, the 5-drop super card, just fall off into the meta, right? Do you think Cheshire Cat is just, and there you see there him showing his proxy card.
Oh, is that Huey? Okay, it's Huey, not the prince. I was like, why isn't he bringing in as a bodyguard? That makes more sense. That's really funny. I'm so sorry. I got distracted by that.
No, that
Could
was
you repeat
funny.
that? The Cheshire right over the bell.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
pretty
When
much,
I
yeah.
first
Hmm.
when I saw the Cheshire too, I had originally dismissed it like, well, this is just worse Bell, right? It's got a smaller body, it doesn't move as much damage, but that ability to repeat it over and over and over again
Yeah.
has just catapulted it into a new category of like, I mean, Bell's great for the nice one hit, but when you want to manipulate over and over, like you can't beat what the Cheshire offers.
Yeah, you basically get to activate its effect twice, right? You could do it
Hmm.
not on curve, but you can definitely do it. You know, you play it depending on how much ink you have. You can play it the following turn. So we do see here some trades going on. Elsa coming down, taking some trades here, getting some two lore, and now we have those evasive characters back on the board that Luke's probably not gonna be able to deal with, and he's gonna have to probably focus on just putting pressure on his board.
Yeah, he needs to get to this Rockstar Stitch, but he's so far away from it. Even with the Huey cost reduction, he's still one off of the Stitch.
Yeah, he's
So
still
Luke, I
one
think,
with
just
Lord.
has
Yeah.
to hold still here. He can't challenge these evasives anyway. He does at least have the Calhoun down, but Bradley is just all gas, no brakes, draws into his third genie. I was like, he's about to draw into the fourth one, probably, as we're going to go ahead and slam this Olaf down too. One of our new cards from set 10.
Hmm.
And Olaf says, anytime he leaves the field, no matter what the reason is, you get to return one of your own characters back to your hand.
Yeah, we can see just how powerful those genies are from the last game, and it's just so strong how these evasive characters, the two willpower, drawing a card, it's just so strong in their strategy. And it looks like we do finally see that Rockstar Shiz come down to try to get some draws, some cycling going.
Yeah. So finally, and it looks like, is Luke scooping it up already? Oh my goodness, he is. Yeah,
Oh,
we were
very
going to exert
unfortunate.
that Rockstar Stitch with the Elsa, just challenging everything. And holy moly, well, that was a lot shorter than I was expecting. Clearly, I gave too much weight to the power of those Mickeys. But Bradley with the AmethystSteel just saying, nah, doesn't matter to me. I'm just going to chop you up into little pieces.
Very unfortunate to see a quick 2-0 go down. AmethystSteel, this version that Bradley built to counteract this low to the ground steel meta, is just overwhelming pressure. Luke couldn't answer these evasive characters, these genies. He had the draws, he had the removal, and we get a nice 2-0, 1 point for EU on the board.
Absolutely. We'll jump into the chat with them, and I don't know how much there's to say, but we'll find what interviews we can off of it, right? And Luke, you can tell me if you disagree, but Calhoun pretty early does a lot against these aggressive decks, doesn't she?
I mean, it's okay. I mean, I'm not even an aggressive deck. I was just more upset about my draw. In game one, he like fumbled there for a turn. Like as he said, like he missed the ink there, and I just didn't have any way to take advantage. I just didn't have a Stitch or a Goliath to really do anything. And doubling up on docks. When I played the dock
Yeah.
and I drew like a 2-drop and a 1-drop, I was like, oh, I lose this game. Okay, like it's already not a fantastic matchup. He just is able to curve out, so I can't just like go a little aggressive. If I try to do that, then he can just eat it up, right?
Yeah.
And so I could have maybe played a little different in that last game. I was even telling him I could have sang Zeus instead of challenging the hook, and then like hoped that he did. I basically hoped he didn't have strength, and he had the strength. But it was just like if he has strength, I'm losing no matter what. I feel even if I do Zeus on the cat.
Sure.
I just needed to get to there. I should have inked the Mulan. I miscounted my ink. I thought I had one more than I did. So I was like, oh well, next turn, like I'm gonna do this, but it was just like, oh no, I just miscounted there. So it's like if I had inked there, I could have played it a turn earlier. Wouldn't have mattered. He had the Elsa, so it's just like, I'm getting got there.
Right. Yeah,
He
well,
kept
and I put a
seven.
lot of faith in that
So I
Mickey
was just like,
Mouse
oh
ahead.
no.
I put a lot of faith in that Mickey Mouse ahead of time. Like, hey, this is extra willpower. Bradley's deck doesn't really have a lot of spot removal outside the Hades, so he's going to have to challenge in. But Bradley, you were just like, nah, that's no big deal. I've got Calhoun and Hook and evasive genies, so it doesn't matter how much willpower you have. I'm going to challenge into them. Yeah, Bradley, talk to me about your deck a little bit.
As I said in my last interview, like AmberSteel, a very consistent deck. Obviously, when it doesn't break, but
Yes.
there's a lot of stuff in the deck, like pretty much your usual bubble steel, but with a bit of tweaks. But it's mainly just to get as much board presence as I possibly can, and trying to mainly get the evasives on board and the evasive removal. But yeah, I think this matchup's a bit too favoured. Like I wanted like a better matchup. Like because I think, to be honest, this deck
Can't get a
is
better
quite
matchup in this
strong.
top 8 or in this event.
I was
I
just
think.
like the AmberSteel. Yeah, like this deck into AmberSteel is like the AmberSteel needs to get like the big attackers to like
Yeah.
really stop this. Like they had all the defense, but I could just attack into it, but I wasn't really losing it much. That was
Yeah.
like the main thing.
Well, let
Like
me
I
ask
said,
you, Brad. Oh, go ahead, Luke.
I was just gonna say the deck's a combo deck, so it looks like trash when it loses, and it looks like God's gift when it wins.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is. In the first game, yeah, as he said, I had all this defense, but that doesn't matter if I can't crack back, right? Like I
Right.
couldn't set up a time to be able to push damage back at him, which was a little unfortunate. I drew the Huey. It's just like I wanted an inkable on that turn, or something like didn't really matter. Having to ink the strength is unfortunate, but
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not a good
Clearly,
match.
your beaters are like the Rhino and the Stitch and the Goliath. Even I mean, he hits for 6, so he actually lets you counter challenge, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, well, as he showed in the first game, it's like I could have tried to create a board stall scenario. I inked rhinos. I could have played those rhinos, but they wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah.
They might have helped a little bit in some of like the counter challenging on the Calhouns, but for me to get that rhino deployed, I wouldn't have had the Mickeys, and then the rhino's not that scary for him. He can just wait and sing. It's
Right.
the fact that he has the evasive clock that I can't interact with.
Yeah.
So the way for me to answer those genies is I have to have an explosive rockstar turn, and then I'll draw into a removal, and then I remove a genie, and I can remove like one a turn basically, and I have to hope he can't outrace that, as it'll
Yeah.
normally take me 2 turns to win after comboing off.
Yep. That
Um,
makes a lot of sense.
but he did
Bradley,
do
oh,
a
go
good
ahead.
job of clogging the board and beating down.
Bradley, I want to ask you, what's your favorite new card from set 10 that you're running?
I would probably say the Damona's book, the
The Grimoire
Grimoire
Machinorum?
one. Yeah, I think
Yeah, I
you'd
love
say.
that card. Have you ever thought about running more of them? I have a Blurple build I'm doing currently where like I run enough so that you can really, really benefit from the lore, but obviously I'm assuming it's working pretty well for you. It's just a one of.
Yeah, like, I don't see it much, but when it does show, it is like really good. I just think that if you put too many in, when you go into a matchup that you don't really need it, or if you find it too early, then it's just gonna get like inked, and it's just gonna be a card that's gonna be worthless, like in the deck. So you want to go against like the slower decks. If I
Yeah,
can't like get the board presence.
that makes sense. Riplungs, did you want to ask him anything?
Yeah, I just want to say awesome match for you guys. Although it was someone could say a short one, I think it's also I think it's also very important, super exciting to see new set 10 cards being played, different strategies, spicy game plans. So very awesome match, and a big shout out to you guys for coming through as players, and shout out to you Bradley for taking it down. I do have a question for you guys, and then we'll go ahead and move on to some shout outs. But Bradley, I did see here that you included the Pete. You updated it from round 1 to round 2, if I'm not mistaken. What are your thoughts on Pete as a card? It's a bunch of players, a lot of talk in the community right now, people saying, hey, Pete's just not what it used to be. I personally find that interesting to say because there's definitely a lot more actions being played this set. What are your thoughts on Pete, and what are you trying to target with that card specifically?
I just think Pete is a decent card. Like the problem with like my 3 drops is Gog is the Lexington. If I have 3 or more, it can't ready. Cobra, it has Vanish, and then sometimes the cat isn't like good enough. And I found if I go into a Double Steel Mirror, then whoever goes first and gets the and then strengths your free drop, then you're pretty much screwed. So Pete just counters that. And Pete, I'm looking to deal with the green blue, like the mean, malicious, and scary combo with the Philip, the songs, and then just anything really.
Oh, perfectly well said, and I do agree with those points. I think it's a very strong card, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see more people use Pete. Luke, shout out to you, Luke. You have a very spicy list, man. I just wanted to ask you, what was your thought process, and what made you want to take this direction? I know back in set one, for all the OG Lorcana players, you were such a fan of the whole Stitch combo deck with AmberSteel, and it's super nice to see you kind of come back to that 10 sets later.
Oh,
What was your thoughts
it was
behind
so
this
much
deck?
better. It was so much better back then. Having a 2-drop shift target instead of a 1-drop shift
Yeah.
target is like huge. Not having a whole new world. There's plenty of things that make it not as good. Um, I basically was just like, oh, these other Sapphire decks are going ramp on 2, ramp on 3, play a 6-drop. Like I could do that.
Makes sense. You could do that. You could definitely do that. It has a different, definitely some interesting tools. It's kind of like you don't really have that much of a
So
aggro
this
approach.
So the list you have on screen though is
Oh, sorry.
actually my last week list.
Uh oh.
The only difference is I cut 2 lanterns for 2 Hueys.
Okay.
And I didn't really slightly regretted it, but I kind of regretted it. It's possible the turn that I drew a Huey, I could have like inked, played the lantern, and then played a 4-drop instead of having to just like not do that at all. I'd probably lose that game either way, but the ability to go like lantern on 2 and play a 1-drop and not have to use the Pluto, or if I have
Yes.
Pluto, be able to go lantern and then tap or exert the Pluto and the lantern to play a Gym Deer.
And you
You know,
mentioned.
I kind of
Sorry.
wanted to touch on a point really quick. You'd mentioned about the 2-drop Stitch versus the 1-drop. I've kind of wondered if that was why we didn't see anyone playing the Robin Hood that was reprinted, that they didn't bring back the 1-cost shift
100%.
target for it. You know, instead you had this uninkable 2-cost. Like, I don't know, maybe that card's fallen out of favor, but I just thought that too. Is like, man, if they had brought back the actual proper shift target, maybe people would have played him more. Do you concur?
I think Robin Hood would see play for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if like a big issue with running shift cards though is the card advantage, right? And
Sure.
Robin Hood kind of nullifies that because most of the time, if it's getting taken down in combat, you're drawing a card, right? If it's
Yeah.
getting challenged down. Whereas, and if it gets hit by a Zeus, you're not drawing that card, but I guess it's like soaking up a piece of removal, but it's still 1 for 2, right?
Yeah.
Although if you're shifting it, you're probably eating something and gaining lore, so it's normally in your value. But so like the shift card has to do something when it comes into play. Rhino is just like so scary, and it like holds the board back, and that's like the closest to a non-card advantage shift card that really sees too much play
Mm.
on its own. Like shift it up. It's just
Yeah.
so much card disadvantage. So without running like Whole New World or Beyond the Horizon, it's kind of hard to run all these shift cards. Especially now that, as you were saying, we have 2-drop shift targets instead of 1-drop shift targets. So they took our songs away and they took our shift targets away.
Yeah. The double whammy.
No, yeah, such a spicy list. And again, thank you guys for coming on here, showing us your spice. It's going to be super exciting to see you guys on round 3. Just before we wrap up, I do want to say if there are any shout outs that you guys want to give out, I'll go ahead and Luke, you can be the first one, and then Bradley can finish off with his shout outs.
Well, obviously, Pavel for throwing this whole thing, Pixelborn for being awesome, the judge staff for the same being awesome, helping out, doing all that, the casters, the viewers like you, because like we wouldn't be doing it if you weren't here, obviously. And if you want to catch more of me, you can check out my channel, Wonderland, with 2 V's. We do the ICL over there. You can check it out on Twitch or on YouTube with their own ICL channel there. I know both of you have cast games there and have participated in some sort. So,
Absolutely.
there's my
It was a
shout
treat.
outs.
Awesome, good shout
Thank you, Luke. What about you, Bradley? Who do you want to give a hello to?
Again, thank you, Pavel, for this. Thank you to all the judges. Thank you to my lovely opponent. Thank you to my family, especially my dad, and just thanks for the local group that I can play chess with.
Excellent. Well, congratulations again on your win. You're starting off round 2 right for EU. So well done,
Bro.
sir. Well done.
And thank you for coming on. I just want to shout out to Pavel, shout out to the LCCC, all the staffs, judges, players. Shout out to all the viewers at home who tune in onto the stream. I promise you next one will be better. It's been a minute since I casted one of these on my channel, so I do apologize for the delays. But I do want to shout out to Rudrose for being a huge help, helping me with the stream behind the scenes. Yeah, I don't know what would have happened if you weren't there in those early minutes. But thank you so much for hopping on, man. I'll let you go ahead and close it out and do it your shout
Oh,
out.
my pleasure, dude. Dude, thank you for running it, and make sure to give Rip Lung some love, because trust me, it's so I'm always relieved when I don't have to run it, because I'm like, oh, good, I just get to focus on talking,
Yep.
because it's such more of a headache to
Uh-huh.
have to sit there and make sure everything's running correctly, make sure the sound's correct. So thank you for doing that, Pavel. Of course, everyone shouting out, folks. This is just the start of round 2. There is another match coming up later today. I believe
yes.
it's going to be on Garrick's channel. It'll be
Later
around,
tonight.
I want to say 6 p.m. Central Time, around 7 p.m. Eastern Time. That should be between North American champion Ed Chu and Aiden, who's from local St. Louis. So go ahead and check that out on Garrick's stream later this evening. There'll be plenty more LCCC action coming this week. And if you, I hope you have a great Thanksgiving if you celebrate that. I know I'm going to enjoy it. And yeah, thanks again to Rip Lungs. We appreciate you being here. And until next time,
Thank you all
take
so
care.
much for watching. Peace out.
Bye.